Sorry about 906. My profound apologies. Welcome to another week of Soccer Down.
How dare you?
I know, exactly. Probably my ear is still trying to dry out from the weekend more than anything.
You know what? It's fine. 1 minute, 1 yard. Who's to count the difference, right?
Yeah. Wow. I know.
Hey, that thing got national stories though.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
GHSA, you're in the national news. It's for something good, right? Something good, right?
no.
We're breaking out the Padme Anakin meme for you, GHSA.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so the thing that got me was I mentioned it to somebody Saturday night. Like, oh, they were on the doorstep. I mean, they probably would have scored the next play anyway. So I had to explain, man, one of the other finals literally had just ended with a 4-play goal line stand.
5-play goal
It
line
had literally happened in the same tournament, the same final set.
5-play goal line stand.
I'm sorry, 5-play. Yes.
How dare you?
I'm sorry. I don't mean to shortchange champions. But, like, the point being, 5-play goal line stand. And then you're going to sit here like, oh, Sandy Creek probably scored anyway. We don't know that.
Nope.
If y'all have missed this, go look up Sandy Creek's game-winning touchdown. I think most of y'all are pretty well connected to, like, most of y'all are pretty well connected to what we talk about and complain about in the universe. But, like, so John had his marathon this week of GHSA state championships at Center Park.
Yes.
And
that
go
was no, just for those outside the state of Georgia, it is the final weekend for high school football in the state of Georgia. And for 27 years, the network that I work for when I do TV stuff, or one of the networks I work for when I do TV stuff, has broadcast the championship games. It was 11 championship games in about 60 hours and 2 crews and all over the place. Continue, Jared Smith.
Yes, those crews are fantastic because they should all be slowly driven insane by doing that much. It's the same thing when we do Corky Kell, which is the preseason version of this.
Yes.
We rotate crews in Corky Kell because you can't have someone running sideline camera for 3 straight games in August in Georgia on artificial turf. They'll die.
Yes, that's true.
So we have to rotate crews. It's tough, and it's a different kind of miserable when it's cold and wet, like it was this weekend. Hats off to the crews out there, everybody in the truck, everybody on the field, even running cable and holding microphones. Great work. Point being,
yes.
If y'all missed it, Sandy Creek won a title. Jason's mad. Jason has Sandy Creek beef back to his high school days when he went to Eagles Landing on the south side. Jason is going to stay mad about that. He's going to stay even madder because Sandy Creek, while attempting to score the game-winning touchdown, had a player tackled at the 1-yard line. Usually this would involve a referee putting one hand up and saying, that's 50 seconds left, roll the clock, he's down at the 1. However, one very ambitious official decided that 1 yard really didn't make much of a difference. And as Spencer Hall mentioned, it is the enthusiasm and the assuredness with which he put up those 2 hands that really drives home the mistake. Because the line judge comes barreling in like Leroy Jenkins, 2 hands up in the air signaling touchdown on a play where the guy was a full yard short. The only thing I can think is maybe he had zero clue who actually had the ball, and he thought one of the up men had it.
I think that's
which in that case, you don't do that, even if that's what you think. If I think that guy has it, he's in. No, I think that guy has it. Let me see. That's how this works.
Yeah, and the play itself, there's a clip that was pulled, and it's anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds, and it's already garnered millions of views on the Bird app. And as Sean Vergara says this morning, yes, apologies are best suited for the Bird app. Good morning. So,
yeah, it's it was something else. I will not accuse anyone of unsavory behavior before or after a game,
Yeah.
I do feel sorry for the players, and honestly, I feel sorry for the ref because I think when he sees what happened, that's gonna stick with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a very big mistake and a very big moment. I think when he saw that, uh, it's a cliche thing to say, and you might think it's BS. There's not going to be a lot of people who feel worse than he does about it.
No doubt. Absolutely. No doubt about it. And
Just
so,
CONCACAF, like,
yeah, Sean, you're,
please
yeah,
have CONCACAF run. Please have CONCACAF officials run GHSA games,
wow. It just,
or the other way. Have GHSA run a CONCACAF match.
oh, see, but actually you'd get things done. But that's just me. Did I say that in my out loud voice?
It's okay. No one heard it.
Yeah, I know. So when you have 11 games in 60 hours in a monsoon, at least that's what it was on Friday night. You do have moments where equipment decides to rebel, and I had that moment where in the middle of an in between game segment, my earpiece, that you'll see, when you're watching live television and you have an earpiece, then that's where you're getting your instructions from director, producer, graphics, and all the traffic that's going on in your head. Mine shorted out from all the rain that it was going on at Center Park. And it's bad from a rain standpoint when you take your earpiece out and you want to clean your ear out just in general, because that water got into your ear in addition to going into your earpiece. And you stick a towel in there just to kind of clean, and you get water. Literally, that's what happened. I was trying to clean out my ear just to make sure that everything was. I got water from the towel that I put in my ear. So that's how bad it was at points. Yeah, it was a monsoon, but no, the crew is ridiculously talented and put up with a lot, and they know how to dress, whereas I don't. And so it was. We're back to talk. We're back to talking soccer. Back to talking soccer, man. We got a couple.
I mean, I actually had one question for you.
Sure, go for it.
It's not even a football question. It's a weather question.
Yeah.
And this can go to the floor, too. Would you rather it be a monsoon like it was Friday, where you're soaked? You're going to be soaked inside of 5 minutes, but you can only get so soaked. Or would you rather have it like Saturday, where it was just almost like this northwestern spitting mist that was just constant, but not really pouring?
Legitimately, it wasn't that bad on Saturday until you got late in the day. It was just gray and windy. It was gray and windy. That was about it. And I would have taken Saturday just because of, you can control gray and windy and misty, where if you are in a monsoon, you can't control it. And the thing is that the monsoon in and of itself was not constant, and you could not anticipate it. So you're like third quarter, it's raining, you get it. And then you go into a commercial break, skies open up. Then you go into a post-game show, and it is all hell breaking loose. I mean, the inconsistency of Mother Nature on Friday and the veracity of Mother Nature in a situation like that. So I'll take Saturday, and I can wear 9 layers of clothing. That's fine. I mean, I double raincoated, and I also stole a towel from the hotel I was staying at for Friday. That's what I did to get through Friday. Double raincoat, dress down, hat, hotel towel. I mean, I looked like I'd gone 15 rounds of Joe Palooka. That's what it looked like with me at some points on Friday, and got back to the hotel, and I just stood in the shower. I mean, it hasn't been that bad for me since, I want to say, the early 2000s, when when you're in the old days, when you're watching the weather and they have like those severe thunderstorm warning areas, and then they just draw like the rectangle. We were the rectangle We were doing live television. Got through the open, commercial, game kicks off, monsoon. Forget it. I had to throw away my pants after the game was over. Blew the umbrella out. Front came through that Friday night or that Saturday night. Sunday morning, it's like 40-mile-an-hour winds coming through, and you could barely keep your car on the road. I mean, I've been in a shower in a hotel in a moment like that where I set off the smoke alarm in my room. And got no phone call from the front desk and got no one knocking on my door saying, "Hey, are you okay?" That's how they literally put me at the end of one of the wings of a hotel. I don't know why, but I was at the end of a wing of a hotel, set off my smoke alarm, and had to crack open my door and the door to the outside to get rid of all of the steam that I had accrued by just standing in the shower. So yeah, that's yeah.
Oh man. So
Yeah.
so
That's your opening kickoff.
so where do we want to start?
Well, let me do the tag first. It's the
Okay, yeah.
opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And you can use the code soccer down here 15, get 15% off all of your purchases from our friends at Kickoff Coffee. And they in turn take 10% and reinvest it into the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at kickoffcoffeeco.com, Kickoff Coffee CO, Facebook, Instagram, and on the Twitters. All right, so probably this morning, I know that folks want to talk about, to a certain degree, a conversation that was had, where you bring in an individual, and this happens a lot. You sit there and you might pay the individual X amount of money, or the individual might sit there and say, "Okay, take my honorarium and donate it to something." And you bring in somebody to talk, and you don't necessarily know what the what the parameters are going to be about said talk, but then it goes down a certain road, and things are said, and then okay, that was for some strange reason that I guess the allegedly, possibly, probably, maybe behind the scenes conversation that you're supposed to have in confidence got sent out publicly, and from there it has snowballed. So now we kind of sort of found out what's going on with Greg Berhalter and a particular player that was eventually revealed to be Gio Reyna. I mean, in the conversation that Greg Berhalter had with CharterWorks, and you have these things. Greg Berhalter has a conversation with CharterWorks, doesn't name an individual, but does go down a road and sit there and say that they had conversations with a player. And we'll get into the in-depth part of it in just a little bit. Obviously, I know that a lot of folks want to talk about this morning. Yeah, we are, Rack. This is where we are. And then, it comes out, and then through conversations, it's then revealed that it's Gio Reyna. Now we have all of our information as to why Gio Reyna was not participating to the levels that a lot of us wished that he would have in this tournament that kind of sort of is up for grabs right now. At least it was coming out of the round of 16 and the round of 8, because you've got Morocco and Croatia hanging out in the Final Four. So, Jarrett, how about them apples?
I mean, so there's a nuance to all of this. Like we talk about all the time, like sports does not exist necessarily in a vacuum of black and white.
Right.
And there's nuance to this that, like, if this happened in a business setting, I think everybody would sit there and be like, well, everyone really, like multiple people screwed the pooch in this. But when it comes to the U.S. national team, and it comes especially to Greg Berhalter, you are going to have a subset of people who have decided that anything he can say or does or manifests into reality is going to be immediately in the wrong no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
frankly, as I said yesterday, I don't have enough alcohol to deal with this at any given moment of my life with this national team, especially with Greg Berhalter, who, again, I think Greg did a solid job in terms of the man beat Mexico multiple times, took a couple trophies off Tata Martino in the process, got you through the World Cup, stabilized your program, played with some guts, even though they got burned.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, got burned by the players that got them there, like guys like Adams and Dest making mistakes, like guys who were key to getting you there. Sometimes that happens. I still don't love the idea of bringing him back for another cycle, but I'm also not going to go burn his house down. I don't want to see him be miserable. Like, he stabilized the program after it was a hot mess after the Klinsman and whatever the hell Bruce Arena was trying to do. Great job. He stabilized things. He can very much, to me, be what Larry Drew was to the Hawks, which is a solid coach and the right person you need at that moment to get the wheels on the wagon to stop falling off. But I don't think he's that guy to get you to the next level. I don't know who that guy is necessarily, but I don't think he is that guy who gets you to the next level. You thank him for his service, and when he moves on, great. That was kind of how I was going into everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then last night happens. First of all, someone from Charter is going to get so very fired for publishing those remarks. Because it's like a leadership symposium. You know, someone's giving an analogy, or in this case, well, they would usually be giving an analogy. In this instance, they're giving an anecdote. Didn't name Gio Reyna by name. I mean, it was even before, like, I think it was Tenorio or Tom Bogert. Like, it's like, yeah, it's Gio Reyna. Like, you could look at it and you could probably get it in 3 guesses or less that it was going to be Gio Reyna when you're looking at the details on it. But yeah, man, somebody's getting fired for publishing that because it wasn't supposed to be published. It's supposed to be like one of those private symposiums on leadership kind of things. It shouldn't come out.
No.
If you want, you can break it down even further to argue, like, should he not be giving that analogy at all? Like that. If that's the route you want to go, that's a different conversation. The part that just baffles me about it all is just you have people who have such a burning hatred for all the things Greg Berhalter to the point that they're willing to bend reality to excuse anything Gio Reyna may or may not have done.
Yeah.
Because Greg Berhalter was on the other side of it, so he is automatically in the wrong 100% of the time, and there's no wiggle room there. It's not all black and white. Should he have maybe used a different anecdote or done something differently? Maybe. I mean, it wasn't even like it. It was one of those things where I think he's talking about, let's leave. You know, we've got an issue. All right, we need to figure out what to do. If they're talking about sending a cat home, Jesus, man, that's not great. Like, if all those, you know, the reports are true about, you know, him just kind of walking through training and pouting and whatnot, not great.
No.
I think, like, if I wanted to take a positive away from all of it, it's that when I read it, I was like, you know what? It seems like the team, like, once he did, like, he's talking about the apology and whatnot, I'm like, good, the team has a healthy internal leadership outside of management. That made me happy to see. Like, that you have dudes on that team who stood up and explained stuff and were able to get through, if the reports are correct, get through to Gio Reyna because he plays 45 minutes against Wales. So, I mean, the fact that he did that makes me think that the hatchet got buried at some point during the entire process. Like, after he did the whole apology thing, the players stood up and said, here's the thing, man, you got to do A, B, and C. And it sounds to me like the team policed itself really nicely, which is good to see. Aside, like, take Greg Berhalter out of that equation.
Yep.
The team seems like it policed itself really well, which for a young squad, like, remember, Tim Ream is dragging the average age of that team up up from, like, you're going to get carded going through a drive-through daiquiri shop outside of New Orleans to I mean, you're going to get carded going into the club just because that's what they have to do. That's the jump we're taking here.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you have a young team that was able to self-police itself in such an efficient manner, that part did make me happy to see. Assuming all of it is true about Reyna, we talked about this last night on the Discord. The only thing I can hope is that he learns from it. Weston McKennie had his own issues. Remember McKennie really goofed with this national team not long ago, a year ago.
Yeah.
And really just kind of, stepped in it and grew from it. That's all you can do with Reyna because he is a 20-year-old kid. It's so often, God, I'm going to talk about this, and I don't take this as me siding just with him and trashing Berhalter. But he is a 20-year-old kid, and it's the thing where kids are asked to grow up so very quickly, especially pro athletes. Because at 20 years old, you're expected to act like a professional in many, many ways. And sounds like he wasn't. It sounds like the team got through to him, which is sometimes what you need to do. Like, it's different hearing it from your teammates who are out there on the field with you than hearing it from management. And I don't care if the manager played or not. It's different when you hear it from your peers versus from your superior.
Right. Yes. Okay.
But you can't just, like, at this point, it's done.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bag on Gio Reyna because it's done. Hopefully he took something away from it and he's able to keep maturing because he's insanely talented. Just keep maturing and make it a speed bump like Weston McKennie did, and then grow from it. Continue to do well at Dortmund. Continue to earn that move maybe to somewhere else and continue to grow. And then you look back on it, you're like, okay, well, that happened, but that was part of growth.
All right, so here's how it was described in The Athletic. U.S. coach Greg Berhalter appeared to reference the Reyna situation without naming the player at the Howe Institute for Society's Summit on Moral Leadership in New York last Tuesday, comments that were published in a CharterWorks newsletter this week. Parenthesis, update. A U.S. soccer spokesperson said the summit in which Berhalter participated was supposed to be explicitly off the record. End quote.
It's so tough with that because, like, because yes, it's supposed to be off the record, but how do we function in a world where it is so hard to make sure stuff stays off the record?
Right, especially with camera phones and recording devices.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, hey, I want to record what's going on here, so I'm going to hit on my phone.
And this wasn't even that, by the way, just so we're clear. Like, this was literally the people, a part of the organization, published the quotes and the notes when they weren't supposed to. Like, someone was just like, hey, don't publish that. They're like, cool, publish.
Yeah. Quote, this is Berhalter. In this last World Cup, we had a player that was clearly not meeting expectations on and off the field, one of the 26 players, so it stood out. As a staff, we sat together for hours deliberating what we were going to do with this player. We were ready to book a plane ticket home. That's how extreme it was. And what it came down to was we're going to have one more conversation with him, and a part of the conversation was how we're going to behave from here out. There aren't going to be any more infractions. But the other thing we said to him was, you're going to have to apologize to the group, but it's going to have to say why you're apologizing. It's going to have to go deeper than, guys, I'm sorry, and prep the leadership group with this. I said, okay, this guy's going to apologize to you as a group, to the whole team. And what was fantastic in this whole thing is that after he apologized, they stood up one by one and said, quote, listen, it hasn't been good enough. You haven't been meeting our expectations of a teammate, and we want to see change, end quote. They really took ownership of that process, and from that day on, there were no issues with this player. As a coach, the way you can deal with things the most appropriately is going back to your values, because it's difficult to send a player home. It was going to be a massive controversy. You would have been reading about it for 5 days straight, but we were prepared to do it because he wasn't meeting the standards of the group, and the group was prepared to do it as well. Attempts to reach Reyna's agent, Dan Siegel, about an hour before publication, after Berhalter's comments were published, were not immediately successful. Siegel later provided The Athletic with the following statement, quote, Gio obviously did not have the experience anyone hoped for at the World Cup. The situation, relationships, and interactions among parties are far more complicated than what has been reported. It is disappointing and disrespectful for certain parties to be commenting on private team matters publicly, especially when some do so without full knowledge of the facts, and others do so in a self-serving manner. At this point, our view is that nothing more is gained by those associated with the national team turning on each other, and we plan no further comment on this matter, end quote. Some of the issues with Reyna leaked out into the public during the tournament after Reyna did not play against Wales. And so there's a large write-up, and we'll probably be referencing it a bit this morning with the Athletic going into this whole situation. But, yeah, there are in any situation like this, and we'll go through the Twitch pitch here as we go this morning as well, there are layers to it. And the biggest thing here is to take each and every individual aspect of this situation and give it its own column. Like, when you're, with a legal pad, like I am every morning. When you've got a piece of paper, everything deserves its own column. Give it its own column, give it its own context, give it its own, layering of the facts. So that way you can sit there and look at things in their individual departments instead of trying to blend things together and go, well, A, B, C, D, E, that's great eventually, but give everything in this its own column. Give Greg Berhalter his own column. Give the national team their own column. Give Gio Reyna his own column. Give the context its own column. All of these different things. CharterWorks gets their own column in this too. So as we're trying to figure out the information in this, everyone gets their own piece of the layering in this. Don't try to mix it together into some kind of a roux until everything is laid out. And it's just so that's another thing for me in all of this. When we get information, set it to the side and then gather as much information in all the different channels as possible when it comes to something like this that is going to garner as much attention as it does.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a complicated thing. On top of it all, you're not the first national team to have a player get into a tiff with a manager.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that happens.
Yep.
It sucks when it happens, but it happens. Players and managers get into it into extreme degrees sometimes. Like, I'm not going to come play for that guy as long as he's in charge, kind of thing. If that's Reyna's approach to it after this. I mean, to the questions we've seen, like, maybe there was something before the World Cup where there was animosity or the disagreement about stuff that they needed to work through. And maybe they didn't. I don't know. Like I said, my big takeaway from that was, aside from, again, like I said, I know it's supposed to be off the record, but it's so hard to assume anything's off the record in 2022.
Yes.
And everything's confidential. It's so hard to assume that. Maybe pick a different anecdote, because if it leaks, it's going to be an absolute firestorm.
Yes.
It sounds like Gio needed to hear that from his teammates.
Yeah.
And like I said, if that's what happened, where it's in the middle of the World Cup and they have that conversation, he played 45 minutes against Wales. If he wasn't busting his tail in training, it might have what clicked into my mind reading that was, if he hasn't been busting his tail, if he's been walking through not getting effort, might not be fit enough to play 90, and maybe you pick him for 45 for that game.
Right.
But the fact that he played 45 made me think that that part of it was fixed. So this all got fixed during the Cup, which is good. Good on the players for taking responsibility for it and standing up and, according to all that, telling him, like, hey, this hasn't been good enough. You've got to be better. And good on Gio for listening.
Yes.
Like I said, I hope he only grows from it, because you gain nothing out of just him pouting or out of, hitting him over the head with a metaphorical shovel constantly. I hope Gio continues to grow and absolutely kill it. And if he needs to get away from Dortmund, I know Bern is one of our resident German experts. Mentioned that what Dortmund is now with so many young players, and where they're just kind of flipping young players as opposed to winning titles. Like, maybe he needs to be somewhere where it's not a bunch of wonderkids. I don't know. So hoping we can just enjoy the games this weekend, or talk about the tragic passing of Grant Wall, because it was still a very busy weekend on a lot of fronts. Some good, some absolutely horrific. And then U.S. Soccer just decided to drop a cherry bomb into a tin can in the middle of the crowd last night. So, whatever.
No question. You know, a lot of you have been commenting on the Twitch pitch. Very, very cool this morning. Running through some of the comments, and I got to figure out how far back I have to go here. Michael Head, yeah, and we can get into Grant Wall as well because of what he means to the, not just to soccer, but to the industry. We can get into that as well as we go here this morning. Michael Head, why would Raina not put forth effort in training? He doesn't get it.
Pouting wouldn't be the first, wouldn't be the last. If you're having disagreements with somebody about something, sometimes that's the sort of thing, especially young players, that will happen. They'll disagree with the way something is happening, and they'll pout about it, and he might have been upset about, if he thought if he was under the impression that he wasn't in the plans for, playing 180 minutes in the group stages, for instance. Maybe he had beef with it. I don't know.
Yeah, and Rack, I know that Rack is a part of this as well. Irritated about it, becoming published, to be honest. If it was meant to be off the record, do we think it's going to cause a further rift between Raina and U.S. Soccer?
God, I hope not.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You got enough chaos going on. Like I said, it's already U.S. men's soccer team. Like the discourse on it, especially among the fans, is already toxic enough without this.
Yeah.
It's already rough enough to have to deal with. So I prefer it not be a thing.
Yeah. You look at, and like I said, Michael, I don't know if there was any kind of animosity pre-World Cup, and if it wasn't worked out prior or anything like that. I think you're just looking at something that's in a present tense environment and dealing with it there. So, then Rack fixed, maybe also possible. He just had to throw everything we had in the second half in the Netherlands, though honestly, Greg has demonstrated that for better or worse, he'll stick to his feelings about personnel. So maybe you're right, and it shows that they had worked it out.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the Netherlands game is I think Greg is, for better or worse, and stubborn is not a bad word for it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He is stubborn enough that he would absolutely, if they hadn't cleared it up, I think he would not have played Reina.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't sit well with you, I understand. I think he is stubborn enough that it's hey, this guy's not doing it. We're not going to play him because of, X, Y, or Z reasons. I think that's a thing that absolutely would have happened. He would have been full bore, about, I'm not going to play. We're not going to play him because, he didn't clear his mind right or whatever. I think he would have stuck to it. I think he is stubborn. You can call him stubborn if you want to. I think that he would have absolutely not played him if they hadn't cleared it up, even if it meant we're not, you're not putting your best players on the field as you're chasing a game.
Yep. And
but that's just me.
We welcome Nick Leafy into the show this morning.
There we go.
Hello, Nicholas.
Greetings and salutations.
Yes, we were discussing the behind closed doors conversation. I mean, we'll get into the action of the weekend and Grant Wall and other topics this morning because we knew that there's a lot to kind of catch up on because I was getting rained on late last week and haven't had the chance to address it properly. But biggest thing this morning we wanted to get out into the ether was the conversation that Greg Berhalter had behind closed doors at Charterworks that had a transcript leaked, and all of a sudden it's discussing how to handle things with a player. Player was not named. Then it was circled back around that it was Gio Reyna, and now we have more answers to everything coming out of the blocks when it came to his lack of activity in the competition overseas.
Yeah, I don't think that organization is going to be getting too many guests in the near future. If
No.
if this off the record, chat stuff is starting to leak. Look, this it, there's a lot of layers to this onion, right? So the first layer is Greg was stupid because you can't with this sort of window. You just literally got off the plane from Qatar and you're already using an example from this most recent tournament, like 96 hours ago, from the time you touched down to talk about how you managed a problematic player and you didn't think this was going to get out. Out of the width and breadth of his career, you're telling me there's no other situation he could have used outside of this one? To me, that's absurd.
It's a really good It's a really good anecdote, but it's a bad time to use it.
Exactly. And so when that leaks, and immediately the reporters are going to start asking Greg, do you have any comment on this? Nope, no comment. Okay, great. Let's go down the ladder now. Okay, who's next? Who can verify this? Assistant coaches? Nope, not talking. Okay, what about the health and nutrition people? Okay, maybe there's one person in there who maybe has an axe to grind or something. I don't know. They say, yeah, it's Gio.
Wants to get their name out there, yeah, as a source.
Yep, or a player. Yeah, it could be a player. It could be somebody on the staff who they finally just go down enough rungs of the ladder. They find one person who's like, yep, it was Gio. And then at that point, everyone involved is doing the moonwalk to try to make this thing right. And it's poor leadership on Greg to use that analogy. I think it breaks the locker room trust of whoever felt the need to confirm to the media who it was. And at this point, how do you move forward? Because you have to address one, the issues with Berhalter talking about this and it getting leaked. That's, you're an idiot for believing that anyone's going to keep it off the record. Two, if this is the situation and it's accurate, how do we address this going forward with Gio? Because obviously, Gio apologized and, there's, a lot of questions as to whether or not Greg should have started him, Greg should have played him. We have to go back to the fact that this is not FIFA. It's not Ultimate Team. These are not players who get in and automatically give 100% when they're on the field. If you're a manager and you have a person who has slacked off on friendlies, slacked off on practice, and has essentially shown you that they're only going to play when they want, or give maximum effort when they want, that's not someone you can count on when the pressure gets really stupid high. And it's extraordinarily frustrating because I'm sure Greg was looking at this like, yeah, I really wish I could play Gio. I wish Gio would come out and ball out of control like we know he can, but there's no guarantee he's going to do that because he feels slighted or whatever. And, Weston McKennie had allegedly, similar issues at one point. He grew out of them. Gio is 20. He's going to grow out of this. But if Berhalter is retained, the way I think it needs to go down is this. Berhalter doesn't call Gio at all for like 6 months. And then, whenever Dortmund's season starts back, Greg shows up to a few games, doesn't call, doesn't email, doesn't write, nothing. And then at some point, when Gio's people reach out and they say, hey, U.S. Soccer, what's happening here? Then you sit down with them and say, look, I'm going to be the manager going forward. And if I tell you to frog walk across Soldier Field, you're going to do it. And if I ask you to fall in line behind whoever the captain is and give your all, you're going to do it. And if I put the armband on you, you lead these people from the front like the champion you can be. And if the answer to any of these things is anything but an absolute resounding yes, then you're not getting called. But there's a lot of stuff that has to go into that. But at the end of the day, the media did its job because it's what they do. Greg did not do his job by talking about this situation immediately after the World Cup. Yes, Jarrett, 100% correct. Great anecdote, terrible timing. And, this is something that Berhalter is going to have to learn from as well. So you knew something was wrong when a player like Gio's not starting.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody he's observably one of the top 3-4 players on the team. If he's not playing, something is very wrong. Berhalter tried to cover for him with the injury mess.
Dude, that one's still
right.
Like that one sticks with me in a moment of criticalness directed at Gio in that
Coach, one thing
Coach tried to give you cover.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't want it. And I mean, maybe you're just not. Again, you're a 20-year-old kid. You might not be thinking about it that way. Because Greg is trying to give everybody cover on all of this, so that everything is all hunky dory and sunshine and rainbows, just so you can get through these problems. But yeah, you can't. If Greg's gonna give you cover like that, you can't just sit there and get like,
no,
well, I don't know, I'm not hurt. Like he's trying, man.
Yeah, if he's talking, and here's the thing: if Gio is talking to Daddy, right? If Gio's talking to Daddy, Claudio Reyna, it says, "Dad, I don't understand what's going on. This bum is saying, this lurch-looking dude is saying that I am injured. I'm not injured. I'm not messed up." Claudio should have been like, "Son, he's covering for you." Now, whether you think it's a real issue, whether you think that he's justified in benching you or not, I'm telling you that the coach is providing you cover, and you need to do whatever it takes to get on his good side so you're starting, right? That's what Claudio should have been saying. And I hope Claudio, it doesn't sound like that's what Claudio said. But in the end, he's 20, and Claudio is somebody who's been around, right? I'm sure he and Mrs. Reyna understand how good their son is.
Yes.
But they are mom and dad first, and they're going to act like mom and dad first. And you'll find that in the professional ranks, that mom and dad there's very little difference between mom and dad of professional player and mom and dad of like U14 academy player. Those instincts still kick in. But to immediately go out and be like, "I'm not injured, I'm fine." It's titanically stupid. And so Gio's going to have to learn from this as well. And the idea that Reyna's petulant at Dortmund and all that has been pushed back on. Derek Ray came out and said, "No, I haven't heard anything except positive stuff that comes out of Dortmund's camp about Gio Reyna." Now, this shows me that there's an issue between Berhalter and Reyna, whether Berhalter tried to big time him and say, "Hey, I don't care who you are back at your club. Here, you are a small fish in a big pond, and you're going to have to earn your spot." And Gio took exception to that. Or if, something happened, Gio had an off day, and, to make an example to the rest of the club, it was pushed, and that kind of broke Gio. There's lots of different ways to take this, but, there are situations like, on Reddit where it's like, am I the blank hole? Is this other person the blank hole, or everyone here sucks? I think this falls under the category of everyone here sucks. That Greg has to be better. Greg tried to give him the air cover. That obviously didn't work. Greg was stupid in this conference thing. Gio may have been petulant, may have been dumb. No, he's not going to give his all in a friendly right before the World Cup because he doesn't want to get injured. This is a kid with an injury history, so he's going to be careful. But at the same time, you have to.
You can communicate those things, man. You can talk, like, and that's a growth thing. It's a maturity thing. But you can talk to coach and say, "Hey, look, I know it's friendly, and I know we're getting ready for the World Cup. I'm not feeling 100% comfortable right now." Now, if he had those conversations and they were ignored, that's a different story. But you can communicate that with the coaching staff of, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable giving 110% in this friendly because of X, Y, and Z. My injury history being A through Z, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, you're looking at Jarrett, I know you got to turn into a pumpkin in a couple minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will give you the option for the bridge topic when you leave and Nick stays. We can either talk about getting to the Final Four in the competition in the host country, or we can talk about Grant Wall for 5 minutes. Your call.
We got quorum here. Nick, what do you think?
I think my thoughts on Grant I put forward in the standalone podcast, but if you guys want to talk about Grant, by all means, because I don't want to take that opportunity from you, Jared, either.
I mean, I can do it in a couple minutes.
Okay.
It sucks. I hate it and Nick, you and I talked about like and this isn't the be all and all of this, but like the geopolitical aspect of passing away in a country that is, I mean, it's tense between your country and their country. It sounds like the Qatari government was very helpful in getting him over. I believe he's coming back today or tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like they were very accommodating to getting him back in American soil quickly. Thank God, because that could have really gotten messy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine I can't imagine that for his family. Like I've lost a loved one to, in a different state very suddenly, and all you can think about is they were alone in that moment, and they shouldn't have been alone.
Yeah.
Granted, I mean, there were reporters with him, but alone being family.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what they're going through. That's absolutely awful. It's a huge loss for our community, for soccer, for sports in general. He did the thing that, and I know we've seen a lot of stuff about his kindness and his generosity to people. The thing that that does matter to me. But one of the things that matters the most is, God, he loved that sport so much. And dude, that's really what I ask for in people covering a sport, because God, I've seen so many grumpy old writers who you read their stuff, you watch them, you feel like, do you even enjoy doing this? Or are you just going through the motions here? I'm begging you, if you're going to do this, love it. Mm-hmm. Love that sport. Love it, and for all of its weird idiosyncrasies. Love it for all of its stupidity and its beauty. The man loved the sport, and he wanted to see it grow. And I appreciate how much he adored this game and how much he wanted it to grow here. And I hope that is, amongst the many takeaways, kindness and generosity being really some of the chief among them. I hope people do take away that, like, hey, at the end of the day, we still want to we want to enjoy what we cover. We want to love what we cover, because then we want to see the best out of it, and we want to help create the best.
No doubt about it. All right,
and I'll put it this way: if anybody wanted to see the kind of stuff that Grant Wall, and how he approached the sport, Jarrett, to your point, when he had a whole podcast regarding Freddie Adu, where he had a long sit down with Freddie Adu. And for those who are very young and don't remember, Adu was a guy who was taking pictures with Pele, and they said he's the next Pele, right? The next super ultra megastar in the sport. And then the kid ended up finishing his career palling around in USL. I mean, anyone could have approached that and said, this dripping with sarcasm, with cynicism, and oh, this is a tremendous fall from grace. Instead, Wall approached it with curiosity, like, bro, what happened? And the interview was done with such care that it should be held up in journalism classes as how you handle such a topic. I mean, to grow from the sport from where it was to where it is now. he has his fingerprints on that. And so, yeah, to echo completely, Jarrett, you're 100% right. If you're going to cover this sport, love it. Don't be one of these people who, everything is sarcasm and the negativity.
Don't be miserable.
Right. I mean, really, don't be miserable. We have so much misery. Don't be miserable.
Yeah, I can look around outside of sport and find misery. I don't need to find it with like miserable snark coverage. Like, and I get it. Like sometimes you're down bad. Sometimes your team or your sport are down bad, and you just want to be sad. That's okay. Go watch the movie Inside Out. It's healthy to have those emotions. It's healthy not to try and suppress those emotions. Sometimes we just need to feel that way. But overall, as a reporter, yeah, I'm sad he's gone. I mean, there are also further problems going on because a Qatari photojournalist passed away as well.
Yep.
And Nick, I know you, in your experience in the Middle East, have experience with some of the illness that can come from being there, and it's not to be taken lightly. So.
Oh no, we all, and I can't. It was right around. It actually was right around Christmas, and all of us got some kind of weird respiratory crap that was just. I mean, it laid out half a battalion. And I think I dropped almost about 20 pounds.
Oh wow.
It was. I went down and got one of the last good bottles from the PX of like the industrial strength depleted uranium cold medication, and didn't even use the measuring cup on it, and just pounded it. And it was, yeah. And
wow.
we had a line outside of sick call, and they would hand us these little tablets, and it was like two little yellow beads and one that looked like a giant NyQuil. And people would just put on a regimen of that stuff. It didn't look like Z-Pack. It looked like something different, but it was around this time of year. Everyone got it, and it was just everyone was hacking and on light duty. It was a terrible, terrible thing. So it may be something with
keep an eye on
the environment, but the air is really hard to deal with if you're not used to the particulate matter in the air. It's very tough to deal with.
I'm going to try and rejoin this conversation because I know we have a visitor as well, another visitor. I'm going to try and rejoin this conversation shortly.
Okay.
I will try and bring a coffee mug too, just so I can blend in and be one of the cool kids. We'll see. I'll be back as soon as I can to try and enjoy this because we did actually have games this weekend that were a lot of fun and really drunk.
Yes.
I won a 30 for 30 about the Argentina Dutch shootout. I'll leave you with that.
All right, so Jarrett will depart, and he's teasing a possible return. Bart Keeler from the SoccerForUs POD joins us. What is the mug this morning, by the way?
Santa.
Okay, so 'tis the season. All right,
tis the season.
Down. Yeah. Well, I thought it was college bowl season, but that's for me. It's just me.
That's only if your college went to a bowl game, John.
That's true. If you're over 500, or unless you're one team that was 5-7 that actually made it in.
Yeah,
glad you could crash this morning. The one thing that we haven't talked about yet are the games from the weekend. And so,
John, why are we talking about games when there's drama to talk about on the U.S. men's national team? Holy cow.
No, that's legitimately what we spent probably a good 40 minutes on this morning, the drama involving the national team. And, so it's what I recommended for folks before we get into actual game stuff was, when you have your piece of paper, when you see something come out in the story, give each and every character and every section its own berth. Make sure that you have a column for everybody so you can assimilate all the information instead of just jamming it all together and go, well, so-and-so said this about this person. So instead of turning it into telephone, give it the space it deserves, and that's why we give it the space it deserves here. Just make sure that you lay everything out in all of its different elements. And I think it's safe to say that not a lot of sports folks are going to go to Charterworks after this after this past week.
No.
Mm-hmm.
It's been listen, the games were highlight of everything. I still think is between what we saw on Friday and then what we had Saturday, we had legitimate entertainment, despite what chucklehead NFL Twitter people say. This sport again proves how entertaining it is. Um, I think people like to talk. I mean, I was at the bar after the Morocco game, and people were like, "Oh man, they just play so boring, and it's they're so defensive." And I'm like, "Did you watch the same game? Because they were like that was an entertaining game, and they tried to score goals multiple times. It getting a getting a result in a knockout round World Cup does not have to be pretty and does not have to be entertaining, but every single one of these matches was entertaining."
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you look at Nick, you look at these four, you had the first two go to pens, and we saw, as I poked myself with a pen this morning, which is really solid, especially it's a new pen with a very sharp point, and you sit there and you just poke your hand with it. That's a good start. You got Livakovic and you got Dibu Martinez, who, we always talk about in other sports where if you've got a hot keeper, that's really going to take you far. And you get a guy like Livakovic for Croatia and Dibu Martinez, who is by far, and if you've never seen Dibu Martinez talk smack in a penalty kick situation,
gold. It is gold. It is worth the Fanatis subscription alone.
Oh, it's tremendous. FNTZ.co/soccer down here. Bart, yes. But yeah.
No, I'm agreeing with Nick. Like, he is fantastic. I was always the goalkeeper who, like, I just stood on my line and, like, stared them down and read them the right way and, still managed to save a few penalty kicks in my day. But I love his antics because it clearly works time and time again. I think that's the thing that it shows out to me is, like, the man is still making saves. It's not a gimmick. He's in the zone, which is fantastic.
I mean, you have a guy like Dibu Martinez. I mean, and he is hitting everything. I mean, it is woofing it, folks. It is killing time. It is checking the net. It's talking to the ref or the linesman sitting there making. I mean, he is hitting all of the talking points when it comes to really throwing somebody off of their game. I mean, it is. All right, how much time can I waste? What can I do? And, by the way, blankety blank is like, bring it. I mean, I would love for Dibu Martinez to maybe have a run as a manager on one of the wrestling shows.
Yes, absolutely.
He's got heel energy.
Well, the thing is, though, is that Argentina has had some really good keepers in the past that have kind of gone under the radar. They had Abondanzieri for a long time, who was a really good keeper. But they didn't have someone who possessed this kind of pure hater energy. And he could speak English, right? And so he knows how to communicate with you and really bring the ruckus. And you're right, Bart. Whatever it is, he knows exactly how to get in your head. It's like that real big SEC energy where I'm going to learn everything about your life. I'm going to learn everything about your girlfriend, your boyfriend, the person on the side. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to use that. And just somehow he does it. Somehow he gets in the heads, and it's a repeatable process, which means that it's planned. And that's what's crazy. So it's, look, Argentina is going to be a story. France is going to be a story. But to me, it's all about Morocco right now. What Morocco has done, from what I've read, that this means that Africa gets 11 teams in the next tournament because Morocco was able to break the glass ceiling and get through. This is a moon landing moment for African teams. And for people who say, oh, they only play defensively. I'm sorry. In 2006, Italy only allowed, like one goal against the run of play, and the entire tournament. And, they hoisted a trophy. This isn't 1932 Italy. This isn't some of the early days of France. This is a team that they defend with religious intensity, and it's clean. That's the thing. It's not like they're going down and hacking people apart. Their defending is largely very, very clean. And that is something that is taught. That is not it's not just it's a pride. It's a pride in defending. It is something that it is built into you, that it's an art, just as much as a possessing midfielder, a quality 10, a pure striker who can turn and just stroke the ball with ease. Quality defending is a mindset. It is an art. Morocco has nailed it. And in my opinion, they are absolutely I think they are the team that can win the whole damn thing.
Really?
The keeper is off the charts. Bono is off the charts. His reaction time is impeccable. That back line ensures that he is getting there's no great wonderful angles for the strikers to hit, so he's getting balls that are very easily deflected, easily captured, and when they do break through the opposition, his reaction time is enough where he can easily handle it. And so at least he makes it look easy, but they are very opportunistic on the attack. When they have their moments, they turn and they're right down the field, they're right in front of your net, and boom, it's in the back of the net before you know it. And once that happens, Morocco, they bring the old Veru, which is the godfather of Catenaccio. It's not that Trapattoni, we're going to bore you to death, Catenaccio. It is very much like that. We're going to defend cleanly. We're going to cycle the ball in the back. We have no fear of that. And then we're going to explode forward. And before you can even do anything about it, we're threatening again. And I'm sorry, that's not boring. And if you think that's boring, I really don't know what to tell you. I don't know how to sell you on anything else, because to me, when you have a team that does like 1,000 passes in a game and they don't ever really threaten, that to me is boring. This is not boring. And, it's not CONMEBOL defending. This is quality, excellent, top tier defending. And this coach from Morocco is going to be sought after when this tournament is done. So I hope that the King of Morocco is ready to dump another 12 million into the program to keep that guy on lock, because that's what they need.
I mean, Bart,
Yeah.
when you look at go ahead. I mean, just when you look at everything else, what do you see?
Well, I mean, I think Morocco is definitely the story of the tournament, but I think we also need to give a lot of credit to the defending champions right now, because France has looked pretty darn good throughout the knockout rounds and throughout every match they've played. And this is going to be a great test for them to see if they can really break down a defense, as Nick said, who it's not dirty, it's not cheap. It is a well-organized, committed defensive structure. And that's going to be tough for them, because France, we know, is also a team that's a little bit more comfortable not having the ball. They like to attack in transition, and you have two teams that love to attack in transition, but they both find ways to make those transition moments for themselves, and that is what's going to be exciting. But to me, I think France has looked. I jokingly said this is going to be the tournament France crashes out, because that's how France does. They have one good tournament, they blow it up the next tournament.
Absolutely.
But credit to Didier Deschamps and the team for being just as consistent as they were last tournament, and finding ways to win games. If it's Harry Kane missing a penalty kick, then they still won. I mean, that's
landed yet, by the way.
Look, England lost on penalty kicks, but nothing else is new.
Mm-mm.
But they're teams that, it's one thing to impose your will, and France
Yes.
has done that from time to time in this tournament. But there's some that they've been, the beneficiaries of circumstance. One of those circumstances is that there are some teams that have no problem beating themselves. England is at the very, very, very top of that list. France is not too far behind. And so you never know what you're going to get out of France game to game. They have the ability to be all-time world beaters in every tournament, every game, and they also possess the ability to look like a bunch of elementary school kids who absolutely hate each other and are just as likely to foul each other as they are anyone else. So, but that's what makes particularly this tournament.
But this team feels a little different still.
They do. They don't seem to have that combustible element that they don't seem quite on edge, do they?
No, they really don't. And
Not quite.
Can
Like they're still. I think they're still French.
yes.
That doesn't go away.
No. But let me go ahead and discuss. Oh, we're going to go. Wow, this was quick.
What?
Fatal four-way. Fatal four-way.
Oh wow!
I know. Olivier
Made it
Giroud,
happen.
who is
Handsomest man in soccer.
712 years old and still producing up top for France.
Doesn't look a day over 29. It looks like
He doesn't.
he was created in like a CG lab for good-looking soccer players.
And you know what? He looks younger now than he did 5 years ago, and I swear to God, it's because he's living in Milan. You live in Italy, and he's on that Mediterranean diet. He's probably walking everywhere. He's probably having a good time, walking up the hill, strengthening those legs, getting that heart pumping. The man looks great.
And that's the thing. That's how Italians, like if you go to Italy and you see like the old people, like you see somebody like, wow, they look old. How old are they? They're like, oh yeah, they're like 95, and like walking to the market, and we either age really well or terribly. And I think it's because of what you said, Jarrett, the diet, the walking, all those things that Americans, we just don't do. But Giroud at Milan has been handed a career lifeline in that Zlatan got injured by.
Never heard of the guy.
Yeah, and we needed. I say this as a Milanista, Rossonero. We needed quality, reliable talent up top, and Giroud came in, and he has been that man nonstop. There was a curse at Milan of the 9 shirt. If you wore 9, your numbers were going to tank. Giroud has broken that, and he has carried that confidence and that swagger into this tournament for France, and has just been lights out. And to the point where in the last game, you saw them marking Giroud more than you saw them marking Mbappe, which is what? Like that's a choice. So
that is a choice. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Bart, I can go one of two ways here. We can talk about the team that France beat, because there is a discussion, there is a talking point coming out of England, and I can't quite do it the way that Jason does it, so I will just leave it as is. Thank you, Nick. That's always the way it goes. That needs to be a drop, by the way. We've got.
No one can do it the way Jason does, because no one has that right cocktail of just spite and pettiness that he has for them.
True. There is a talking point out of that country, or we can just discuss the sheer madness of the hopefully soon to be made 30 for 30 on Argentina and the Netherlands, just in general, with all of the gesticulating and the pointing and the throwing of pencils. And
let's talk Argentina and Netherlands. Let's talk look, here's a conversation about England. You bottled it again. Boom. Okay, moving on.
Well, there's also Gareth Southgate is debating his future. He's wondering whether or not he should continue or go back into the club game.
You've got 2 World Cups.
Why does he get to
under
debate
your belt?
it?
Yeah.
This should be debated for him. The answer should be, thank you for your service. Here's a gold watch. This has been one of the best periods of English success without one of the most successful periods without a trophy possible for the English. Thank you for that. But we're going to move on.
Who the hell are they going to get?
Well, most periods don't have a trophy for England, so.
But
this is true.
I was asked at the St. Nicholas Cup, right, this past weekend over at Silverbacks, Jack, the Father Christmas Cup, something like that. And Jackie Fresh had a tournament over there, and I was talking with one of the parents, and they said, what do you think about England? And I said, look, I almost, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. Go ahead and, John, mark the time, prepare the notes, make sure that it is logged appropriately in the annals of our fine show.
Go for it.
I almost wanted England to win just so the media would leave those boys alone, because the English media has yet to figure out that they are the problem, that England had an unbelievably stacked team.
Are we the baddies?
They had, I know, maybe somebody put like some paint thinner or something in my coffee this morning.
Bunch of old, stodgy, stuffy, middle-aged dudes that are locked into their mindsets being an issue when it comes to the media? No.
But the media is the problem in England. If you look at Argentina, you look at Brazil, when the tournament's over for those guys, they go back to their clubs in Europe. Maybe a few go back to Brazil and Argentina. They don't have to deal with that media 24/7, 365, right? In England, they have to deal with that mess 24/7, 365. It's not exactly like there's a ton of English talent on the rest of the continent. There's no media that is as nasty, as venomous, as toxic. It's clandestine. They're tapping phones, they're hacking emails. The cameras are with you 24/7, 365. The media is the problem, and who wants to get into that toxic stew to manage the Three Lions? You have somebody now who seems to want to be there, which is, I want the man checked, his mentals checked immediately for that. But who else in the English pipeline for management is ready, willing, and able to take that job?
Go outside the pipeline.
You have to.
Yeah, I don't think England's going to do that. Just like Italy. Italy will never do that. I don't think England will ever do that. And I think it's stupid of them.
Luis Enrique and see what he's doing.
Yeah, that'll go well.
Yikes.
But
All right.
England is a victim of their own mentality, and it has been the thing that has plagued them for so long because they've had talented team after talented team, but then it's impossible to tune that media out because it is so pervasive in everything and everywhere on that tiny little island, and they won't change a damn thing to get the job done.
And I know that it looked like Harry Kane was auditioning for his post Premier League days because he does want to be a kicker in the National Football League, and it's right over the crossbar. Well done. That's you and Greg Zerline, you got that figured out.
I can't say a damn thing about that.
But you know what? I ran into Jessica Sharman Saturday after the game. She saw me and immediately raised a glass in surrender and just like, I'm going to drink all of this. Don't talk to me. So we can get into that aspect of it because when I asked her about it, she mentioned he's at that point taking a second penalty, and maybe he's overthinking it, thinking, okay, I went that way the first time. This one has to be even more perfect because it's already in both of our heads, myself and the keeper, what's about to happen. So now this has to be even more perfect, and he just tried to be too perfect and tried to aim it almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with England, England is suffering right now with what Italy suffered with for a long time. Like in '94, Roberto Baggio was probably one of the top two best players on the planet, and he gets to the spot and he sends the ball into low lunar orbit, and it has haunted him to this day. If any interviews with him it's heartbreaking to hear him still talk about it to this day. Is the year of our Lord 2022, and he still has to answer all these questions about 1994. Go to 98. They're in the semifinals. They're against the home nation in France, and then yet again another skied penalty puts them out. We get to 2006 in the World Cup, and what happens? We go to penalties, right? I immediately remember looking at my ex-wife and being like, we need to find something else to do because this game's over, right? It sets into a fan base. It sets into a team. And when that victory happened, it all, like, this immense weight lifts. And so when we got to the Euros and we're playing England, I already had English people DMing me and English fans DMing me saying, it's a wrap, Italy won. I'm like, no, that's crap. They're like, no, just trust us on this. We know very well what we're talking about. It is in the heads of the fans. It's in the heads of the players. And they're just going to have to find a way to work through it. I don't know, but credit to him. Yes. Credit to Kane answering the questions. Really, really stunned that the English media did not put him front and center, Kane front and center, and instead elected to put some of their other players on the cover of their publications about England crashing out. But that's a conversation for another minute or two.
Yeah. Bart, what else is on your mind from the weekend?
Well, I do feel, Nick, what you're talking about with England. I think their issue for me just comes down to they constantly overrate themselves. And it feels a little bit like a non-Georgia or Bama SEC fan base where they think they're really good because of the players they think they have. But at the end of the day, you're just a pretty decent team. And yeah, like Jarrett said, this is a fantastic run for them. I mean, a World Cup semifinal, a Euro final, and a World Cup quarterfinal where, you probably feel like you probably should have got farther. But
they played better than France. I thought they were
yeah,
better.
they did. Absolutely. And, good for them. They just, look, you didn't get the job done in one match, but it's still really successful. You're still about performing where you probably in your head think you should be. I know England thinks they should win every match ever and every tournament ever, but that's just not reality. Look, you're one of the top 8 teams in the world, probably higher than that based on looking at everything else. That's pretty darn good, and I know that's hard for them to accept, but that's where you are, England. Deal with it.
Luka Modric. Yeah, I mean, Luka Modric is 37, Jarrett, by the way.
I mean, he's still really damn good. Lionel Messi's getting old too. He's still really good.
Yeah.
And he's a great player. Modric's a great player. Cristiano Ronaldo is there.
He is CR37, I'll tell you that. If that Messi quote is not marketed, trademarked, and put on anything and everything merchandisable from this moment forward, que miras Bobo, if that isn't everywhere, it is a missed opportunity for Argentina and Argentina marketing.
Nobody made more money after that World Cup than Argentine tattoo artists.
Oh my goodness.
Those tattoos have been gold. Absolute gold.
I mean,
but
man.
Here's with Luka Modric, he reminds me a lot, and I yes, I'm Italo-centric. I don't care. He reminds me a lot of Pirlo in his later days, especially when Italy had that run in the Euros, and previous to this one, where they took when Spain was at God level, and Italy was one of the few teams that actually took it to him. And Pirlo was this incredible orchestrator. He wasn't defending much of anything, but he could orchestrate, point people where to go, put the pass absolutely where it needed to be at the right time, and assess his options, and almost without fail find the right option. And Luka Modric is somebody who this tournament, for this tournament alone, you need to put him in the Ballon d'Or conversation. He doesn't have to win it, but he needs to be in the conversation because this is one of the best tournaments that I've seen from an individual player, where Modric he's been an absolute orchestrator for Croatia, and without him on the field, I am not sure if Croatia's getting past round 1, because everything that man is doing is absolute magic. And I've kind of slandered him in the past for the Ballon d'Or win and things like I own when I'm wrong, absolute bat blank wrong, punish thyself. But this man's an orchestrator of the highest order, and respect must be given. It's time to give this man his flowers on a global level.
To answer the question, Rack needed to know when Que Miras Bobo happened. It was in the mix zone. And, when you're in the mix zone, there's a reason they call it that. And so it was seconds before an interview with Teise after the quarterfinal win. And the video exists, and you see Messi looking off to his right, and whoever that individual was, they were off.
Weghorst.
Yeah, it was talking to Weghorst, Wout Weghorst, who scored both goals for the for the opposition there. But yeah, it was literally he was looking at Wout Weghorst in the mix zone, and that's when that happened. So that's the genesis of the quote. And once again, you do not step on Superman's cape in the mix zone. You don't do that. It's just, oh man.
But can we talk about Messi for a moment?
Yes, let's talk about Lionel Messi.
Because I think the Messi Ronaldo conversation is officially over. I think it needs to be. It needs to be. Because as great as a player as Ronaldo has been, whether you like him personally or not, it's the difference between the two played out in this tournament, where a guy who's largely built his career on physical ability, his skill level. I mean, obviously, top tier, A+11111, but Messi's ability to orchestrate, Messi's ability to put players in the right position, to find players in almost impossible situations, and lift the entire team around him is completely different.
And not be an anchor to your team offensively, Bart.
Yeah.
Nick, that's the whole thing, right? Like, at the end of the day, being a good teammate, I won't go as far as to say a good person, but being a good teammate goes a lot farther than being an angry egomaniac, excuse me for saying this, dickhead, who has now ruined multiple locker rooms.
Languages here. It's okay, buddy. You got clearance. It's okay.
I don't want John to get in trouble with the FCC.
No, Uncle Charlie won't have problems. I'll just put the disclaimer about the language on the.
But Messi, when he was surrounded by like 4 players, and he megged a dude to put that first player in position for the Argentine goal, for the first Argentine goal.
It's one of the greatest passes I've ever seen in my life.
It's so good.
It was 3-on-6.
Like not even like, oh, that's a great pass. No, that's genuinely one of the greatest passes I've ever seen in my life. Like every angle of it, there's not an angle you look at it and go, I can see what he was looking at. No, you can't. No. He was Doctor Strange going like, I got 5,000 futures and 2 of them I'm pulling this off. I'm in one of them. Let's go.
And the thing about like when Ronaldo was at his physical prime, there are very few players who are at their physical prime who were more dangerous than Ronaldo.
Absolutely.
Like Brazilian Ronaldo, I think, is the only one who can come close from a physical perspective of the minute this man touches the ball, it's lightning in a bottle. God help anyone who's in front of him. But as he began to age, you could kind of see where at the end of this timeline that is, unless you have a whole team built around him, it's probably not going to go that well. This Portuguese team performed observably better without him on the field. And they're going to be a dangerous team to come for the next few years. But the one thing with Messi that I've always thought is that if he had an ounce of Maradona's anger and could put it into gameplay,
I think that's called cocaine. And
that's called copious amounts of Napolitano cocaine. But yeah, but
remember, Messi never angered the Italian organized crime syndicates.
Oh God, no, yeah. Messi never got the Camorra on his bad side. But look, what I saw in this mix zone, this is a different Messi. It's a different Messi than we've seen from post Copa America, when they won Copa America, and Messi, you could see the shackles sort of come off Messi in that tournament, where he said, "Okay, I cannot be the dude who is dragging this team forward. We all have to go together." And Argentina crossing that line, I think, lifted a huge burden off of him personally. But what we're seeing now in this tournament, and the Dutch did something extraordinarily stupid. They woke up the monster, because what he's doing now is he is middle fingers to the world, and Croatia is going to have to do something nuts, because you can't foul the man, right? Yeah, you can't foul him. He doesn't just drop it, like a house of cards. He puts all of his other players in great position. So if you mark 4 dudes around him, he's going to find the open man. And now that he's playing with anger and he's going to attack you, it must-see TV. It's absolute Argentina must-see TV.
Oh, and by the way, subtle plug before we continue. Elsewhere Brewing tomorrow at 1:00, lunch before the 2:00. So SDH on the road show it elsewhere from 1 to 2 or 1 until probably like 1:45. So we can all settle in and get ready to yell, or at least I'll watch everybody yell for the Argentina match. So elsewhere brewing, 1 o'clock tomorrow. Go ahead, Jarrett.
So the thing that gets me about these two, and I know it's this thing where we compare Messi with Ronaldo consistently. It's the way everybody moves around them. Like when Ronaldo does something, it seems like guys celebrate because, okay, we did a good thing. We're in a good spot.
Yay.
Whereas with Messi, it feels like everyone on that team recognizes the weight that he has on his shoulders in carrying
Yes.
the Argentine national team. And as happy as they are to win, it feels like, if just from the outside, it feels like they are ecstatic for him as well. And that relationship between the superstar and their players looks night and day between those two and their teams.
Jarrett, to build on that too, it's not just the players around him, right? It's every single fan in the stadium wearing white and blue, or at that point not orange, because there were like 12 Dutch fans in the entire stadium. But
Yeah.
every single fan seems to be like, the mission is not to win a World Cup for Argentina. Is to win a World Cup for Lionel Messi. That's what it seems like. You know, the byproduct is Argentina will add a third star above their chest, but really it's, we need to get Messi one because they got two with their greatest of all time. Maybe Messi is their greatest of all time if he can get the one. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it seems like that is the passion going on right now, and that's what's lovely to see.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. Let's see. So piece of developing news came out this morning away from the tournament itself, and it has to do with the domestic league. And I wanted to get into this since I have the fatal four-way here, since I have the full committee here this morning. Andrew Marchand in his weekly media column in the New York Post. Fox Sports will, in fact, air some Major League Soccer matches on linear TV in 2023, while ESPN will not. So that has come out this morning that FOX is going to air on linear. ESPN is not going to be airing on linear this morning. Remember that get your subscriptions ready for Apple and MLS unless you're a season ticket holder. The 10-year deal with Apple and MLS starts this year. So it looks like big FOX is going to have the domestic over-the-air stuff, and ESPN is not. That came out this morning. So intriguing stuff there. Bart, what else is on your mind this morning?
The laugh. Bart's about to cut a promo.
He is.
There are a lot of people on Twitter this morning very angry at a coach.
People are angry on Twitter for a coach?
I know. For attempting to manage a very high-class superstar level talent player in a locker room. I think it's fair to say that Greg Berhalter has had issues with player management before, and the fact that it does seem like he doesn't handle anyone who doesn't acquiesce completely to the culture of the team and play nice with the group as a whole. And that's a criticism that people have had of Berhalter. However, it's okay to call a 20-year-old out for being a little shithead. It's okay to do that.
I am going to have to put a disclaimer this morning.
Because look, Nick, you have a kid playing soccer right now. I'm sure you've seen your fair share of, 14-year-olds who act like they are better than they are.
Oh, yes.
Gio Reyna is a very incredible talent for this country. A player who hopefully will bring us magical moments the way that Messi and Ronaldo have brought their country. I mean, I'm not trying to overstate that. I truly think that Gio Reyna can do that for us. But he has at no point during his career shown that he enjoys taking the humble pill and understanding his role. his role right now on this team is not to be the superstar. And that's a blessing for him. He really does need to understand that. He doesn't have to be the superstar at 20 years old. He's allowed to kind of not take a backseat, but be a passenger and just come along for the ride. I don't think we'll know the full story for another day or two. And that's okay. I think people are reacting to a lot of bits and pieces of information that are or are not confirmed, which they like it because it confirms whatever they feel like about the coach.
Yeah.
I feel like if your response to all this is to double down on your hate of Greg Berhalter, I question your ability to make rational decisions in your own life, because I'm not even trying to say that he was right or wrong here. I just think that this was probably the best route to go forward for a kid who didn't do anything actually wrong, if that makes sense. Now, we don't know that. Maybe he did something actually wrong. We haven't heard that full reporting, but it just seems like he was being not a good teammate, not dedicated to the cause. And, whether it was the coaches had to make a decision, the player, whatever it was, it seems like players before the decision was made did confront him, and he still didn't change his attitude. And you can say what you want about the rumored players who confronted him. It's been rumored or reported that it was DeAndre Yedlin and Aaron Long. But Gio, again, needs to understand where he fits into this whole puzzle that is U.S. soccer landscape, and understand, again, that he is not the face of the program yet. He may not be the most important player on the team right now. He may be the most talented. That's probably fair. But, buddy, just understand the big picture of where you are and where you're going and where you stand in that path.
And thus concludes the 5-paragraph essay for the moment. But like I said, that's why we have the space that we have. So that way we can give it the depth that it deserves. Okay, so gentlemen, now that Bart has put that particular pipe bomb in this morning, going back to hour number one, Nick, what do you about what Bart Keeler said, Jarrett and Nick? What do you think? Who goes first? Who wants first?
Go ahead, Nick. I already spoke a little bit on this. But go ahead, Omar.
Yeah, look, the fact that I still have all of my adult teeth and can open both eyes and my nose isn't going in 15 different directions because of me in my 20s, it's a 2 steps short of water into wine. But when I was 20, I was, oh my God in heaven, I was just the most toxic little brat walking the earth. And it happens, right? And when you're a supremely talented 20-year-old, you are, everyone around you says you are the next big thing,
and have
everyone
for half
around
of that individual's life ever since they were the first. They were the next big thing, even when they were that not even close.
Right, you were the biggest thing to come out of your school. You were the biggest thing to come out of your academy. You were the biggest thing to come into your to come out of the country. The most hype, the most pop, and you hit your first wall. Right, you hit your first wall, and that you have a guy who's essentially a walking pair of pleated khakis, telling you that for whatever reason you're not starting, and or I'm starting this player at this time, and just because this walking set of pleated khakis thinks that it's tactically the best decision, so you crater, right? Because it's the first time you've been told that you're not the right solution to this particular problem. You can either be, okay, cool, I guess I'll just do what I do and figure it out, which is a very mature thing to do, or you can dive into self-pity and anger and sadness, and that's the one magical word that everyone leaves out of all this stuff is sadness, and get sad, get big sad, and let it come out sideways. And it sounds like with Gio that happened. That doesn't mean anything else was handled correctly after that by anyone, right? And Berhalter is, I'm not a U.S. men's national team fan. I have really no vested interest in where this program goes going forward. However, I will say that if you are a U.S. men's soccer fan, you should feel infinitely better about your chances over the next 8 years with this team and their age than my Italy does, than Argentina post Messi. They're going to have big questions to figure out. What's going to happen? The toxicity surrounding the English side, any of these other teams out there. The U.S. is in a prime position where over the next 8 years, you could do something really stupid, really magical, and really fun. That doesn't mean Greg Berhalter is going to be the captain of that boat. But if he is, the talent that this man's going to be coaching is so ignorantly head and shoulders above, top to bottom, where you were 15 years ago, 20 years ago, not just from a skill level, because I think you may have had more individually skilled and talented players along the way, but you haven't had the depth of quality players like you have now at this age group. The future is ridiculously bright for the U.S. national team, but it's going to take players like Gio to take these lumps and grow up. And to have a 20-year-old in the World Cup, you're going to have lumps. You're going to take those hits. And Gio's taking those hits now. Berhalter has been discussed in his early days of the U.S. men's national team tenure, ran it like a club team. And Miles Robinson was the victim of this, where he had to do, sprints after the game.
You didn't play, run.
And, that damaged his, But here's the thing. Who else in the pipeline's coming through if it's not Berhalter? You could talk about Marsh. Marsh is too tactically rigid in my mind. He's not getting out of press until you die. Until I start seeing more flexibility there, I have questions. Brian Schmetzer is going to be leading Seattle into the Club World Cup. For this year, I don't necessarily think you're going to get him. So 6 months, 2 years from now, different animal. But
make a pretty spreadsheet, see if that lures him in. Put it under a rabbit trap.
Yeah, man. Tell him he's going to be selling some Canon copiers, part-time when he's not coaching up the national team. I think he may dive all over that. Maybe good insurance policy.
You make a good pivot table, and he might jump.
He might.
Oh, we're going to go from a presentation king to a spreadsheet king. Great.
Right. Exactly. But look, the U.S., there's so much positivity and greatness around this, potential greatness for this U.S. men's national team. As an Italy fan, I look at the width and breadth of the youth players that you have, and I am jealous, right? I the fact that you all are willing to start 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds in a World Cup, jealous. We don't have that. We may have 4 stars above the crest, but the future, that was, you're only as funky as your last cut. That doesn't mean Italy's in a good position going forward. The U.S. men's national team is. Just get the leadership thing sorted out. I think you're going to be fine, and get the leadership not just at the coaching position, but on the field as well. And with that, I'm shutting my mouth.
All right. Let's see. So since Bart cut his promo, Nick cut his promo. Jarrett, you want to cut a promo before we go?
Nothing I haven't said before. He's a 20-year-old kid. It's funny because, I think about all these young players, and we think about them domestically. Think about the Bryce Harpers of the world, the LeBron Jameses of the world, Sidney Crosby. These guys, Connor David, these guys who were christened as teenagers. Not said, man, he's going to be good, but told, that guy's going to be the savior. That guy's going to be the truth. You got to grow up fast, and it's tough, and they're going to hurdles. Gio just happened to have a very public one, and that sucks for everybody involved. Like I said, at the end of the day, this is all said and done. I think the hatchet was buried efficiently enough because
it was buried in charter works more than anything.
Yeah, they're going to be getting the bobs from Office Space. That's all they're going to be able to afford going forward to come in and give anecdotes. And Bart, I don't know how you feel about this. I think that Greg is stubborn enough that if things had not been efficiently handled, he wouldn't have played Gio against the Netherlands.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where the whole point of the players. I mean, it's been vehemently denied that like the players had a vote, but clearly the players were consulted. Gio was asked to at least apologize to them, and they all seem good. So from Greg's standpoint, if he felt okay, y'all said it's good, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a positive. You know, I think to your point, Jarrett, that to me shows that Greg at least is a man of principle, which I don't think we've ever felt that he wasn't, but that's a positive in that regard.
Yeah, it's to this point now where I think that Hatcher has been buried sufficiently to where he was able to go out there and be part of the project in the last 45 minutes. I still wonder if he was fit enough that if he's lollygagging in practice, if they're having issues that he wasn't fit enough to go 90.
Yeah.
So you picked your spot with him. You didn't start him, which makes sense. Like Tim Weah had been making the decision really damn easy, all this considered, because Weah played really well.
That's the part that bothers me a little bit, Jarrett, is like this idea that Gio was like christened to start, and it's like, did you watch any of qualifying? The only good attacking sequences we ever had seemed to come from Tim Weah or Anthony Robinson. So like, why would you like Tim Weah made this team play better? So what like I'm confused why he felt like he was going to be gifted a starting spot, and then why some fans come to his defense like, oh, he should have started, and it's like, no, he should have played more. I think that's a very fair thing to say. I think if he were more fit, which I do agree with you, Jared, that there seems to be a slight fitness issue, because even in those 45 minutes, the dude like gassed throughout it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would have played more. I don't think he would have started against Wales. I don't know if he would have started against England. I would have liked for him to have played more, but I don't know about starting. I mean, Brendan Aaronson's a great player as well, and in just as good of form as Gio Reyna. He wasn't like, no one was saying he has to start. This is the point of an international team, and sometimes you have roles that, you know, when you look at, especially the U.S., we don't have a whole lot of depth. So being able to bring Gio or Brendan off the bench is a huge plus compared to, you know, a guy like, Kellen Acosta.
Best committed the most important yellow card of that tournament when he
did
ripped down a Welsh player in the first game. He picked up that yellow. So what was completely asinine to me is this idea that you know, the hardcore Greg out people. This also annoys me because I don't necessarily want Greg here for another cycle. I don't.
Same.
And y'all are making me defend this man. You know
how
annoying this is to me? How annoyed I am that I have to defend this man because you're being irrational about, you should still play him anyway. I'm like, do you know what that does to a team if somebody can act the fool that much, not put any effort in? Which, based on the reports about the way the players talked to him and, you know, had to come to Jesus meeting, clearly was impacting their opinions of him as well in those moments. If you just went, that's okay, you can. I'm still just going to play you 90 minutes every game. Don't worry about it. You know, you don't have to do anything. Like, do you know what that can do to a team? Do you have any idea what that can do to a team's morale, due to trust in the coach, trust in each other, internal bickering, creating rifts within the team and creating smaller groups? Like, no, you're not going to just play him 90 minutes every game just because of his name and because of his potential if he's not going to put in the work. Everybody, and to your point, with a national team,
what kind of a message does that send? If you
with a national team, you have roles. Not everybody can take center stage and grab the mic. Everyone's got to take on a role. And if he busts his ass, I don't know what his role would have been. It might have been the same. I don't know. But he sure wasn't going to get any. It was sure if he wasn't working hard, that role wasn't going to get any better right now. All he can do from it now is, man, stiff upper lip, go out to Dortmund, ball out, and whoever the next manager is, go in there and bust your ass and go make everyone in the world dread to face you. Make all of those predictions about you as a player, the same kind they made on LeBron, the same kind they made on Connor David, the same kind they made on Bryce Harper. Make those predictions about you look like a prophecy about to come true. But that is in your hands to go make it happen. So go do it.
Bang. Okay, so parting shots. And since it's a Monday, it can be random. It doesn't necessarily matter what it is. It could be soccer related. It could be something else. Because Lord knows when we do the opening kickoff, that goes off the rails.
The opening
Nick,
kickoff was 15 minutes yelling about. He was yelling about Sandy Creek and the inability to measure a yard.
there was that. Plus TV electronics. Hopefully not, frying hosts down here.
John looking like Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean.
True. Wearing a lid. Nick Leafy, parting shot, can or cannot be soccer related.
It's somewhat soccer related. Look, with the passing of Grant Wall, one thing I want to talk about is the fact that a vast majority of his articles did not punch down. I don't ever recall a time when Grant punched down. And so it's easy to punch down and be a rage merchant. It does great business. Clicks go through the roof. Bounce time drops to, bounce time goes into the positive territory for, what advertisers want to see. Rage merchants get fantastic engagement, drive subscriptions, but it is completely up to you to give the rage merchant what they want. So if you are a podcaster, if you are a blog writer, try not to punch down. Try not to be a rage merchant. Being a rage merchant means you don't have to look at stats. It means you don't have to look at observably good things and pretend that there's something else. It just cover the sport, love what you do, and try your damnedest not to be a rage merchant or punch down. And with that, I step away. Good day to you all.
Jarrett Smith, parting shot.
Enjoy this next week. Hang on to it. Squeeze it. Squeeze the life out of it if you have to, because we get 3 games that God only knows. We could get potentially a Clash of the Titans traditional blue blood matchup with France or Argentina. We could get a Croatia-Morocco matchup. You don't know how absolutely insane that would be? Like, somebody's going to make so much money if that is the deal. These next 2 semifinals will be a lot of fun, I think. The final could be anywhere from Cinderella versus, I don't want to call Croatia. They're not a Cinderella. I mean, they're kind of like an old Sherman tank that's been through the war so many times, and they're still standing, and they've taken so many glancing blows from anti-tank artillery, and you're wondering, how the hell are you here? How are you not sitting in a ditch somewhere on fire? How the hell did you beat them? What does it take to kill you? They just keep rolling along. The tread's fallen off maybe once or twice, but they put it back on. They got a commander who does his job, who is one of the best we've ever seen do it. Maybe doesn't get enough respect until he was into his mid to late 30s. How does this unfold? I have no idea, but enjoy it, because once it's done in a week's time, man, silly season kicks back up and we enter the dark days before we get back to getting ready for MLS and getting ready for the European leagues to really kick back up. We keep an eye on these guys for another couple years before we get to Copa America, which, oh boy, that's a whole different day we can discuss.
Oh, and happy 5-0 to Garth Lagerwey, by the way. Bart Keeler, parting shot for your Monday.
I had the pleasure of going to the Men in Blazers live recording last week when they were here in Atlanta, and got to hear our new president talk. And my biggest takeaway from that was that I think Garth Lagerway, and I'm not trying to say this to slight Darren Eales, because I think that both wanted the same thing, but both, but Garth seems to be more direct about this. His goal is to win, and his only goal will be to win. The rest of the clubhouse is going to have to get on board with that. There are certain people who I think have gotten away with not winning. And I think that as a culture, we have been focused on a lot of things that help win, that have made us winning off the field in terms of notoriety, in terms of attendance records, in terms of just all these things that make the club sound cool. Garth strikes me as a guy who wants to win. So as fans, our job is to support that club in that endeavor. But if I'm someone in the Atlanta United front office or just team in general, better come ready to win.
And for those who missed it, you can go back in the library in the conversation that we had with Nico Moreno on Thursdays with Nico on a Friday. When Garth was hired, we had the special edition with Nico, and he broke down the kind of individual that Garth is. Garth's not afraid to wear the black hat and be the black hat in the room. And so I think that, Bart, to your point, I think that a lot of Atlanta United folks got to see that and understand it's about winning, and because we've seen what has happened in Seattle, Club World Cup, although we still don't know when that's going to be or where that's going to be. They made it to the Club World Cup.
It's a secret.
Yeah, it's a secret competition. And so
you have to use the special knock.
Yes. Go back and listen to that conversation that we had. Look up Garth Lagerwey Thursdays with Nico, however you do it on the network, and get and understand Nico's perspective on Garth and what Atlanta United and the fan base and Major League Soccer are now getting with Garth Lagerwey on this side of the Mississippi River when it comes to the 2023 season and everything that's going to be new with it in very, very short order. So this was fun. I'm glad that everybody crashed the party this morning on a Monday. This was fun stuff. Bart was multitasking. He didn't have a game on in the background because there wasn't a game to have on in the background. I was thinking maybe like Hallmark movies or something would be on background.
No, that'll happen. That'll start after we get off this.
Okay. And so so guys, like I said, as always, what I wanted to do with the World Cup was make sure that it was a golden ticket status and just crash the party and have stuff like this happen all the time. And so as always, we do have guests everywhere, and when I let everybody know in the morning when it's going to happen. When they can crash, they crash, and we have collisions that turn into Soccer Talk's version of Demolition Derby. So for Nick at Nick Leafy, at SOC over there, for at Jarrett _Smith, for at Bartimus Prime 19, and at SoccerForUs POD. Don't forget, remember, Elsewhere Brewing tomorrow, 1 until like 1:45. We're going to talk stuff. Then we're going to watch Argentina. So encouraging you spending your lunch and your afternoon, maybe you can take some PTO and come and hang out with us there. So we'll be back at it tomorrow. So for everybody here, Nick, send us home.
Until next time, everyone, please be nice to each other, take care of each other, and mucha euro y'all.
What he said, and since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. Play it safe, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.